You're in Braves country.
Good afternoon, Braves country, unless, of course, you're in the central time zone or further west, then good morning. We are going over the Marlins series today as the Braves enter the series with the Marlins, coming off a series loss against the Mets, but we did avoid the sweep, and we did get the season series win. So the Braves beat out the Mets for the series 8-5 in the season series. Is what I'm trying to say. So I try to get my act together. And all in all, it was a great game on Sunday. The two days before that it's just awful starting pitching. Bryce Elder, he did what basically the ceiling of what Bryce Elder can do, which is spread around hits, try to eliminate the eliminate the hard contact, get weak contact, and keep the team in the game. That he gave up the home run to Vientos, but other than that, he pitched pretty well. And then the bullpen came in and did a phenomenal job. Kept them right where they're at. I know Iglesias gave up the one run, but he was at the top of the order. Those are the hardest outs to get in a game, are the last three, especially when you've got a close game and you've got a team that's actually playing for something. And tonight, what we start off with is Spencer Strider on a 3-game losing streak. Remember, they gave him the extra day of rest. I think a lot of it was because he's been struggling. They didn't want him to face the New York Mets offense. And so, with all that being said, I do believe that he is going to come out tonight and probably pitch a little better. It's probably a little embarrassing for him, let's be honest. If you're Spencer Strider, and I do want to mention something real quick. We're live on TikTok, but also we are going to be going live on these over on the Armchair Quarterback Radio station channel on our YouTube, and that is free for people to watch. It's a long story, but basically we've got a few radio stations that are now carrying this show, and it's easier for me to just have them be able to grab it over there and people to be able to watch it than to go behind, open up the membership and whatnot after the broadcast, because what ends up happening is I get bogged down in 100 different things, and it's always a race to get it over there. So hopefully it helps build that channel a little bit too. We started that channel a couple of years back, but haven't done anything with it. From time to time, we've done some things. I think we got like 50 subscribers or something like that. But anyways, it's Armchair Quarterback Radio. And if you want to catch this, if you're listening to the audio replay before we do the pitch-by-pitch here on Braves Country Radio, if you want to catch the audio or you watch the video that day or watch it live, you can go over there going forward. That and the Armchair Quarterback shows will be over there as well, because we're hoping to get that monetized by next year is the short of it, but also make it easier for the radio stations. We're already planning on doing it, and I just decided to go ahead and do it now as opposed to we were going to do it later in the year after baseball season. So with all that being said, what we've got here is the Braves are coming into this series, and I get it that it would take an absolute miracle. As I do a sound check. Okay, cool. We're good to go. I get it would take an absolute miracle for the Braves to make the playoffs. So I'm not insinuating that they're playing for the playoffs right now. Now, if you believe in history, the 1914 Miracle Braves of Boston came from way back in the cellar and ended up winning the pennant Back then, there was just one team from each side, and they met in the World Series. And so it can be done. It's just not likely to be done, right? And so you look at what you've got going the rest of the year. What I want to see for tonight, if you're a Braves fan, you're like, why am I paying attention to a team that's this far behind? If they get hot, maybe I'll check in, but blah, 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 blah. It's football season. Maybe you're a golf fan, a NASCAR fan, all kinds of things going on. Bless your heart if it's for some reason you're a WNBA fan. I think that's going on right now. I don't know. Anyways, if you are a baseball fan and you're a fan of your team, the reason why you're watching is you want to see improvement. You want to see improvement. In this series specifically, you want to see improvement from Strider. You want to see what Waldrop can do yet again. He's been phenomenal. You're not necessarily looking for improvement. You want to see if he can sustain what he's been doing. He pitches on Tuesday night's game. Those are becoming some of my favorite days now because you get to look forward to Herson Waldrop Day. Just like we used to look forward to Spencer Strider Day. He's been struggling, but he's coming off that injury, and anybody that thinks we need to just go ahead and punt on Spencer Strider and, oh, man, it's over and blah, blah. No, he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine by next year. His velocity will be back. That's a fact. But you'd like to see some improvement this year so that when he hits the offseason, he has something to build off of. And whether you believe in that or not, I don't care if you've never played a sport and you think that you know things. That is a thing. When you're playing a sport, no matter what sport it is, when you go to hit an off season, or even in the middle of the season, getting positive reactions, positive feedback helps build your confidence going forward. And even a guy who's done it, this isn't a video game, even a guy who's done it in the past like Spencer Strider, he has got to be questioning himself right now because he's been so bad recently. So you want to see him improve. You want to see a rookie like Waldrop build off of what he's done. I mean, if I had to explain to you why a rookie needs some self-confidence, then you're just a full-blown idiot and I can't help you. And then the other thing is Joey Wentz on Wednesday. And that's the day game. You want to see what can he do. I don't really care about can he go 6-7 innings because it's unrealistic to think that of Joey Wentz. What I want to see is what can he look like one, maybe even two times through the lineup, because he is a perfect candidate to be the long man in your bullpen to start 2026, assuming health on everybody else. And from time to time, you'll need him as a swingman coming out of the bullpen, a piggyback as they call them, right? What you could be doing is looking at a guy who could spot start from time to time. The Braves recently broke their all-time record, modern-day record of starting pitchers to start a game. I think they're at 16 now, 16 or 17. There was some stat that was thrown out that in the about a little over 100 years ago, I can't remember the exact season. I want to say it was 1914, but it might have been anywhere. It's in that neighborhood. There were two starts that weren't counted because of rain, and so the guy was making the argument that technically it is we still haven't made the record. Well, games don't count if they get rained out, so that's just the way it is. So they have hit the most starting pitchers in a game, in a season, for a full season in Atlanta Braves baseball history. And remember, that goes back to 1871. Now, back then, you only had a couple of starting pitchers because they pitched about every other day. But that's still a something because you think about some of the injury-plagued seasons we've had, and we have broken those. Even in some of the good seasons we've had, 21, 22, 23, we still went through a plethora of pitching. I think at one point we were averaging about 13 to 14 starting pitchers a year, but we've broken that mark. I'll pull that number up in a second if I can find it. I think I know where it is. But with Joey Wentz, what I want to see is can he go through a Miami lineup that's not the greatest in baseball? Can he go through it on Wednesday? at least 2 times and look pretty good. Doesn't have to shut him out, just look pretty good, because it can continue to build the confidence that next year that is a guy who, by the way, you have control over for quite some time. He can be a part of this team next year where other folks have given up on him. A year where we've been lost because of the injuries, you might actually be building something you didn't intend to build on. Because let's be honest, if everybody was healthy, and let's say we make it down the stretch, or whether we make the playoffs or not, but we get an early bounce or whatever, you would have never entertained a Joey Wentz. But now, and you'll get a full offseason to work with him. Now you're talking about something that is possible. We're live on TikTok. We're live on YouTube. I can only see the YouTube, and also on Facebook. I can only see the YouTube and Facebook comments because of the way it's set up. I can see comments and whatnot and who's coming into TikTok, but it's very small. It's far away, so it's hard for me to see it. So, real quick, good to see you, Raymond, Iron Lung, and I think that's it right now in the chat. And I know these come at weird times, so that's why we do them as early as we do, so you can listen to them the rest of the day. So, Country Club members, good to see you. Anybody that wants to ask a question in the chat, they can in Facebook or YouTube. We've got plenty of room, plenty of time. These have been coming on at 10 a.m. on Thursday and Friday after the Armchair Quarterback show, depending, like this week it'll be Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, and that's why it's going to confuse people. But we're getting to the back end of the stretch where, starting in the off season, you're going to have the football show at 9 a.m. You're going to have the baseball shows at 10 a.m. on Thursdays and Fridays, because I'm going to be working elsewhere outside of the radio world earlier in the week. So that's why that's going to go down. But I figured noon, because I know guys like Iron Lung that live out on the West Coast to follow. I figured it'd be a good day to do it for him, and it allows me to get some stuff done here in the mornings. But back to what I was talking about with the whole situation with the Braves. You got Strider, you got Waldrop, you got Wentz. And you want to see you want to see Waldrop continue to do his thing, and you want to see some improvement by Strider, and you just want to see what Wentz has. He looked really good first couple of outings. Then he got banged around. All in all, I'd say it would be, if you're giving him a report card, considering the fact we picked him up off the trash heap, I would say you're talking about a guy who, if I'm giving him a grade since he's been with the Braves, about a BB plus, all things considered. They're going to be going up against Cabrera, Alcantara, and Gusto. Cabrera's going to be the toughest one. He pitches tonight versus Strider. Alcantara, he's got the talent. He's very much like Strider, where he's coming off of major surgery. Alcantara actually did the Tommy John, the surgery for Spencer Strider. It wasn't exactly Tommy John. It's the brace, internal brace surgery, but essentially same kind of timeline. A little quicker for Strider to come back, but they're in the same boat where they're coming back. They're trying to get their touchdown. I would love to hear from Spencer Strider what he thinks about the brace surgery. I haven't heard anyone actually ask him about it yet, and maybe they'll ask him in the offseason. But would he suggest it over Tommy John? Because remember, he's had both. So Wentz and Gusto on Wednesday, and Gusto is a guy that they picked up off. He came from Houston, and he's kind of a guy that they wouldn't love to be in their rotation as they're trying to make a playoff push. But he's an innings eater, so it's going to be a pretty fair matchup on Wednesday. It's going to be a fair matchup on Tuesday. You got a rookie versus Alcantara, who at one point was one of the best right-handers in baseball. He's trying to work his way back. What I would kind of love to have seen is give Waldrop the start on tonight, which you could have done, and have Strider go up against Alcantara, and then both, because Cabrera's pitched really well for the Miami Marlins, but it would set you up to where you could, in theory, have two very comparable matchups with Waldrop versus Cabrera and Strider versus Alcantara with all the storylines that go on in that. But anyways, that's what we have going on there. Real quick, we haven't done this much, but I pulled up Bill Miller's umpire scorecard from yesterday. And when we're always telling you on the broadcast how bad a guy's been, and you're probably like, oh, man, you just think everybody's terrible. This is how bad Big Bill Miller was. 85% called strike accuracy. That is well below the average. Called ball accuracy was just below the average. It wasn't terrible. He had, was it 3 or 4 balls that technically hit the zone. None of them were egregious where the entire ball is in the strike zone and he called it a ball. They were all touching paint. But the strikes that he called, they were all on the inside part of the plate to a right-hander, outside to a left-hander. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those were there. One was above the zone, and I think you remember me complaining about that one. I think that was, I want to say that was Nick Allen. They got that call. It was terrible. I know that. See, I think it's, yes, it was Nick Allen. The other one was bottom of the 4th to Ozzie Albies, and then the other one that what they're calling is impactful miscalls was one to Beatty. But you can debate on whether something's impactful or not. When they put it on this scorecard, what they're calling impactful is something that would be essentially a called third strike or something that should have been a called third strike and led to a walk or whatever. But I will contend with you that most pitches are impactful because it swings the entire at bat. If you got a 1-1 count and you call a strike that should have been a ball, now the guy's in the hole 1 and 2, and he's got to defend the plate, or he's just going to be hacking wildly like a lot of them do nowadays. Vice versa, now it's a 2-1 count and the pitcher's behind the 8 ball. So any pitch that's missed to me is impactful unless he calls ball 4 a strike and the very next pitch goes way out of the zone and it didn't matter anyways. But other than that, it's normally impactful. So Bill Miller, and they were talking about basically how bad he has been. And Bill Miller, all in all, what you saw yesterday is pretty much par for the course with him. He actually had several that are worse. He's had a few that are better. But all in all, his overall consistency, 92%, which is below the average. And his overall accuracy, 93%, which is below the average. But overall, he impacted 0.18% runs for the Mets. And the reason why they're saying that is because one of the pitches that was blown led to that home run that Vientos hit. And that's the short of it with me doing a deep dive. So the point is, these guys, I'm so ready for the ABS system because these guys are consistently making mistakes, and I know it's a tough job. I get that. We're seeing a box. They don't get that box. They don't see the ball go through a box. So, and plus, that box we see on the screen isn't always 100%. But normally, if you compare that along with the StatCast and the pitch track, and you have them, and I always have them all three side by side, you get an idea if it was a ball or a strike. Next year, I believe the ABS system will be in play, and I don't think 2 is enough. I think they'll start off with 2, and then you'll see it gradually get larger. I think what you're eventually going to get is you're going to get X amount in the first part of the game and X amount in the second part of the game. Because as this progresses and people are going to fall in love with it because it's so quick. If you haven't viewed the ABS, it's the robo-ump that everyone calls it, but it's not really robotic. It's a challenge system, but it really quick. I mean, it comes back lightning fast. It comes back as fast as the tennis. If anybody's watching the U.S. Open, real quick, it says, is it in or out? It's out. It's in. Let's go on to the next serve. In baseball, striker ball. All right, next pitch. So I believe what they're eventually going to do is have one in the first 5 innings and 2 in the last 4, or maybe 2 in the last 3. Maybe they'll wait till the 7th inning. But you have to have it set up because, honest engine, fans are going to remember more of the challenge that isn't able to be challenged late in the game, especially when you start talking about postseason or someone's postseason chances. So there's that. I just wanted to hit that up real quick because I do believe that it's coming. I think it'll be here next spring, and there's no reason why they can't do it next spring. And so ABS, I am so ready for it. Let me see. Does anyone have any? By the way, those of y'all who are listening on Braves Country Radio, they're going to tune in for the game tonight. We're going to do something different that I thought would be fun down the stretch. So when we all met up in Atlanta for the All-Star game, Uncle Charlie brought me a box of old baseball cards. And I thought what would be fun to do is I'm going to take a stack each game. I got tonight's stack. I haven't looked at them. I'm going to do this blindly. And we're going to go through the cards, and the ones that I think that might spark some interest, we'll talk about that, right, throughout the game. And obviously won't get through all of them because if it's someone that's a no-name nobody's going to remember, or I don't have anything to add to it, we'll move on. But we'll get through that stack before the end of the regular season. It should be a lot of fun. I'll give you an example. Who's on top here? Gary Carter. A lot of folks remember Gary Carter, but a lot of folks would say Gary Carter was one of the greatest catchers in the Gen X era, right? Growing up watching baseball. But how many of y'all remember that he ended up playing with the LA Dodgers at the end of his career? I kind of forgot about it. Most of us, when we think of Gary Carter, we think of the Expos and we think of the Mets, and especially the Mets because of the 86 championship. But he was an all-time great as an Expo. So it'll be stuff like that. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And if you don't think it's fun, then you're probably just not fun at parties. All right. Well, let's see, Royal Peter, will they still have umpires on the field? Yes, they will still have umpires on the field. Once again, it's a challenge system. It's just like in football when you can challenge a fumble or not, but it's going to be much quicker. They did it during the All-Star game. If you want to get an idea of they did it during spring training. If you want to get an idea, there's plenty of videos out there, and they continue to do it in minor leagues. All it's going to be is guys standing at the plate, the catcher and the pitcher. These are the only 3 that can challenge. It can't come from the dugout. They can't get any help. Right now, what they use in spring and what they use in the All-Star game is you get 2 for the entire game for the entire team. The entire team. So you got to be picky on when you're going to do it. Now, if you get the challenge correct, you keep those challenges. You do not lose your challenge. So in theory, you could challenge it 50 times if you're always going to be correct. But what it'll do, just give you a quick example. Let's say tonight's game. I haven't seen the umpire, but we'll take yesterday's umpires. So we'll say Bill Miller is behind the plate. We'll say that Smurf is behind the plate, and Lindor comes to bat, and Bryce Elder's on the mound, and Bill Miller calls the ball a strike, and Lindor goes, "That's hogwash." So all they did was tap their head like that. They immediately look at the replay, and if it was a ball and not a strike, it immediately goes to 1-0. If not, you lose the challenge and it's 0-1. But it has to come from either the guy standing at the plate, Lindor, Smurf the catcher, or the man on the mound at the time, Bryce Elder. Can't come from anybody else. And that's it. That's as quick as I can explain it. So we go from that, and a couple of things to go over that you may have missed. Cal Quantrill should be available. He got pulled the other night. It was just cramps. So we went over it during the broadcast, but in case you missed it. Now, here's one that's interesting. So when we talked about that, Cal Quantrill got the start on Saturday night. and he became the 17th pitcher to start a game for the Atlanta Braves this season. The most starting pitchers to be used in a single season in franchise history. 1911, 1936, 1945 all had 16, and then 26 and 23 also had 16. So that broke the all-time record. But what one of the fans was talking about was that the fact that when you look at it, it was 1911. For some reason, I thought it was the Miracle Braves. 1911 team had two different starting pitchers that went 3 innings, but the game was postponed due to rain, and they never made. They didn't make a start the rest of the season. So technically, the 1911 team had 18. No, the 1911 team had 18. Technically, they only had 16 because those games didn't count. So that's what I was referring to. Let's see, what else do we have in here? By the way, if you rest of baseball, this was back on Friday night. The Cubs outfielder Kyle Tucker hit a home run. It was his first home run in nearly 5 weeks. This is a guy that's going into big-time free agency. That's a drought, man. Home run hitter? 5 weeks, especially playing in Wrigley in the summer? Oof. That had to have hurt his stock big time. Real quick, we haven't done this in a while because the Braves have been out of it, but I feel like other baseball fans care about this, so let's go ahead and do it. Let's take a real quick look at the standings before we head on down the road today. Major League Baseball, we're going to focus on the teams in the playoffs. The Braves right now, if you're wondering, they're 17 out of first in the East, so that's obviously not going to happen. But wild card, your only chance, 10 games out, and they would have to get scalding hot. Because Miami, let's be honest, they probably need to sweep Miami this week, at least win the series. They're 2 games behind Miami, 3.5 behind San Fran, 4.5 behind St. Louis, 4.5 behind Arizona, 8.5 behind Cincinnati, and 10 games behind the Mets. And the only way they were going to make some big-time ground up is if they would have swept the Mets this weekend, they would have been within 6. They lost the series, so now they're back to 10. So it makes it where you have to get even more scalding hot because we don't face the Mets again. And they're now if the Mets continue to flounder like they have been, then it's kind of a moot point and you're focusing on Cincinnati, Arizona, etc. But National League wild card looks like this. Cubs are going to make it. Padres are going to make it. It's the Mets and the Reds that are fighting it out for the last spot unless something crazy happens. You do have Arizona and St. Louis 5.5 out and San Fran 6.5 out, but let's just cut it off at there because the idea that Miami or Atlanta are going to catch them is just basically filling time. American League. Big shift in the American League this weekend is the Red Sox took 3 or 4 against the Yankees. They are now a half game in front of the Yankees. They were 1.5 back. So Boston has the top wild card in the American League. They are a half game in front of the Yankees, tied in the loss column, for those that view it that way. They are 1 full game in front of Seattle. Then you've got Kansas City, Texas, and Cleveland, and you can kind of cut it off there. Cleveland's 5 back, Texas 4.5 back, and Kansas City is 3 back. I really feel like Kansas City is probably the most likely of those 3 to make a charge. They've been playing pretty good baseball. They've won 7 of their last 10. You've got Cleveland, who's lost 8 of 10, and Texas, who has lost they've won 3 in a row, but prior to that, they were really scuffling. So they're 5-5 over their last 10. You look at the big picture standings, the divisional standings. Detroit's going to win the Central. Toronto should win the East. They got a 5-game lead on Boston, but I'm telling you, Boston's been hot. And there's still, 30 games left, so you never know on that one. Houston is holding on to a 2-game lead over Seattle. That one could get interesting down the stretch. And we are going to have Seattle and the Padres as the double dip on our doubleheader this week. That's going to be Wednesday afternoon. Braves play the Marlins at 1. Padres in Seattle come on at 4 Eastern. So we're going to do a double dip on Braves Country Radio. If you haven't caught it before, we have a lot of fun on the play-by-play. It's not one of these cheerleading channels where you just sit around and rah-rah, and man, we actually try to do a professional broadcast play-by-play. And we have a lot of sound bites that make it fun for Braves fans and other fans. What else do we have here? I think I went over that. So, National League big picture. In the East, Phillies and Mets are about to face off in a 3-game series. Philly leads that division by 7 over the Mets. As long as they don't get swept, they'll be all right going down the stretch. They just have to make sure they don't get swept by the Mets. And it's going to be really difficult for the Mets to make up big ground because they played with their food for so long. Philly has just made this big jump. Remember, it was only about like a month ago that they were neck and neck. See the Central. Milwaukee, it's getting a little tighter. Milwaukee's lost 6 of 10, and the Cubs have won 3 in a row. But the Cubs really needed to dominate that series, that 5-game series in 3 days against Milwaukee in Chicago, and that didn't happen. That's a 5-game lead for Milwaukee. They should end up coasting. What's interesting about this is the Dodgers and the Padres, they are neck and neck now. 74 and 57, both identical records. The rest of the West is cooked. The rest of the Central is cooked, by the way, after Chicago. Reds' only chance is a wild card. They're 13 back. But what's interesting about this, Milwaukee has the best record in baseball with 81 wins. So if they win the division, they're most likely going to be the number 1 seed. The Cubs have 76 wins. That's better than the Dodgers. That is a half game behind Philly. That is better than Houston. And that is a half game behind Toronto and 2 behind Detroit. So the wild card National League Cubs have better records than some of these other teams. You'll start getting the argument, they ought to do it just by records. This isn't basketball. This isn't hockey. This is baseball, and winning your division should mean something. We'll go ahead and get out of here. Let me see if there's any more comments. I think they're just going back and forth with each other. And, okay, I don't see anything. So that's it. We'll go ahead and get out of here. Get out of your hair. Pitch-by-pitch, play-by-play of your Atlanta Braves. That is going to be on, it's early tonight, 6:40. So we're going to come on the air on Braves Country Radio on YouTube about 5:45. Once again, if you missed the intro on this, you're going to be able to start catching the Braves Country Todays, the Armchair Quarterback Todays on Thursdays and Fridays. Catching them on YouTube on Armchair Quarterback Radio, trying to build up that channel. You're not going to have to be a Country Club member to catch it over there, but you'll still have to be a Country Club member to catch it over in Braves Country. Because if you're a Country Club member and you're just sick of the bozos over there, you just go into the VIP lounge on Braves Country Radio. And of course, we're still on TikTok, and most of these will come on Facebook, but we're not going to do all of them. All right, y'all have a great one. I'll get out of your hair. Thanks for listening. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you Thursday before the Phillies series, and that will be 10 a.m. Eastern, right after Armchair Quarterbacks Today.